Alison MacLean is a Canadian filmmaker with an eclectic background. She studied English Lit and political science at university. She's worked as a coach and instructor in ballet and gymnastics. She took to the skies as a flight attendant and landed a full-time job as a shooter for TSN. That experience behind the camera serves her well when she makes a documentary. Her most recent film footage was in war-torn Afghanistan. Her documentary is called Outside the Wire. It is my pleasure to welcome Alison MacLean to Studio 4 to tell us more. You've been busy.
Very busy. It was a very fast turnaround, June and July in Afghanistan. And then coming back, and I've actually been working on the Navy 100 celebrations too. That's what's been financing a lot of this adventure. So it was a fast turnaround, but I really wanted to get the story of our Canadian soldiers out there quickly. I know Canadians are in a lot of dialogue and they need more information, so I needed to get it out.
Well, it's a far cry from doing training videos or something like that.
But that does pay the mortgage.
Well, that's the thing. Pays the mortgage to do what you love, and I'm suspecting you love this. I don't mean you loved what was going on in Afghanistan particularly, but the people and the real stories of the women and the men in the military, U.S., Canada,
and British, the coalition. I was embedded with Canadian Forces for 3 weeks and American Medevac for 5 days. And they're all heroes. What they have to go through each and every day is mind-boggling.
I'm sure you had expectations before you went, and you'd taken a few courses, or at least called up the military and talked to the government and tried to figure out what you needed to take, what the challenges were, what the restrictions were, first couple of days.
Well, actually, Operation Athena is the program run by the Canadian Forces through CEFCOM, and it took me a year and a half to be allowed to join in. They only accept 30 journalists, and so I have to compete with all you big guys like CBC, Global, CTV, etc. So I had to really convince them that as an independent, I was someone that they could invest in, because you have to remember the soldiers are putting their lives at risk in order for us to bring back the stories. So I was very humbled by that, and you can appreciate that as a journalist. You realize how important it is to bring back good factual stories. And for me, my focus was on providing clean audio, clean image. You're in a war zone, so trying to get clean audio was my nightmare. It was my nightmare.
I'm sure, and a dusty war zone at that. People I've talked to who have returned from Afghanistan say the dust doesn't work with contact lenses. Other things too, but the dust and the heat.
The heat was intense because I have my flak vest here, and I was outside the wire for a good deal of that time. Outside the wire means outside the safe zone. I was outside of Kandahar airfield and went to the forward operating bases. Now for that you have to wear full body armor, which is a flak vest, and then blast plates. I had to wear blast plates in case of IED attacks, snipers, etc. And you also have to wear long sleeves and full helmet, and it was 120 degrees.
And still run or do something. Can I see the flak
well,
jacket?
actually, I wanted you to feel this. This is just one of my blast plates. That was for the front, and I had one in the back.
How much does this weigh? Any
15
idea?
pounds.
15 pounds
with the
on the front
vest.
and the back?
Well, all together.
All together.
This is the flak vest, and I was very lucky to have a couple of sponsors. Armorworks sponsored custom body armor for me. They were quite intrigued. They even asked me what my color was. I said I love green. So I was saying, you know, I want to do the same job as the guys, but I don't want to look like them. And I had secret pockets put in so that my media cards for my camera would be able to fit in the front. And this, again, is all new technology, as in with the camera work. The reason why I was able to do what I was able to do was because of the new technology. It's smaller, lighter, more compact. I had media cards that were in there. And so I knew the media cards would survive.
Right. But the thing is, this is heavy too.
Yes.
And you have to get the right angle or do the right thing and move in and out of a tank or a truck or a medic van. Gosh.
I think all my years as
that's why I'm a talk show
sports
host.
camera person. Well,
Not in the field.
I love being in the field. Total adrenaline junkie. My favorite thing at TSN was when I was covering motorsports for them, all the car racing.
Really?
So I learned in that job to move quickly.
Were you an adventurous child?
Yeah.
I thought you were a ballet instructor or
Well,
something.
yes, I did. That paved the way. I've always self-financed. I financed my education. I really wanted to go to UCLA for broadcast because they had a fantastic program. And I had to work in the Middle East for 6 months in order to have the money to go to university.
You worked in the Middle East. Is that where you did the Hajj?
That's where I got
Mecca?
started, and I was 22 at the time, and I did suggest to other people afterwards that they just get a student loan because I almost didn't survive that adventure. But going back to Afghanistan was amazing because I've been involved with some of the women's groups to raise money for the secret schools, etc. I was very aware of what's been going on there. I knew that the Canadian Forces were doing an amazing job in the field, and unfortunately with news, you don't always get to see the full story behind it just because of the nature of news. So what I was trying to do was bring back stories of reconstruction. And that was the intention, as well as to showcase a little bit of the Americans and the British, etc.
And how they get along and how they cooperate and what it's really like outside the wire.
Exactly.
How did you learn to speak military?
Actually,
as you know, everything's an abbreviation. The FOBs, the IED, you think, what was that again? Was that an explosive device or was that a military base? What's going on? Did it take you a while?
Exactly. Actually, they were constantly reminding me that I am a civilian, and so they were wonderful at re-educating me. But for myself, I was just totally in awe as to how the systems are working in Afghanistan. We have the national supply element, we have logistics, we have our ground medics, and then with the American Medevac program, the Medevac program is there for everyone. It's the insurgents, it's the Afghan civilians, it's our soldiers.
It's the children.
They help everyone. A lot of children are injured with the IED blast. And so Medevac does their best to get them out. And the ground medics also help them. So it's a huge, huge issue.
And when you talk to the individual medics, actually we have some film when you were talking to a soldier from Quebec.
Yes, Lisa.
Lisa, let's take a look at what she has to say about her job.
Saw a lot of traumas and a lot of medical calls. My dad was military for 20 years, and I've always wanted to join the military. When I joined, I thought that you could have the choice between role 1, which is what I'm doing right now, or role 3, which is in the hospital. But we did a training with Maple Guardian, with TACMed. We did a lot of training as medics, and it's a medical now in Afghanistan has to do both. They have to be able to work as sick parade, like anything to do with people with coughs and bruises and cuts, to dismounted with a full gear and walk with the infantry guys. You have to do both. Half the time it's IEDs. They find IEDs and we have to work with the counter IED team, which are the combat engineers. Once we get there, I'm in a Bison. We have a crew commander and a driver, and I'm in the back, which is a mini ambulance, which is enough room for like 2 patients. If they need a medic out for any kind of reason, somebody got hurt, they just need that extra person, then we get out. We hear on TV so many bad things, but there's actually some good people out there. They're very friendly. They're not all in the same category.
And that was one of the major points of the documentary. They're not all in the same category.
Exactly. And the soldiers, they're our frontline workers, healers, warriors, and they're doing amazing work. And they're the ones that have to rebuild this country, and they're doing it one village at a time. But it's a process. It takes time. And so part of my focus as a filmmaker was to make sure that I bring back stories that will allow Canadians to engage in dialogue so that hopefully they'll support the mission more and ensure that we give the Afghan community the support that they need.
There was one female officer, I believe U.S. officer, who went to school to learn the language, trying to connect with the people. She went to school to learn either Pashto or...
Exactly.
Or
she learned Pashto. And the American military offer a wonderful program, which I'm hoping maybe Canada will offer one day. They enable their soldiers to go to school to learn the language of the country that they're going to be in. And so she volunteered for service. She was a 20-year veteran herself. And that took amazing initiative. And she's still there and working hard. She's involved in the, she'll be involved with the mentoring program, which is what I'll be going back to document next year.
Because the mentoring program program is about, helping the people and helping them build wells or a facility or a school, and asking them personally, what do they need? Not what we think they need, but what do they need?
Yes, well, that is slightly different with that program. Most of the mentoring programs are actually with the Afghan police, army.
Okay, that
and
one,
with
yes.
the police and the army. And so we are mentoring on all levels, but the mentoring that most people are familiar with is with the Afghan police and the Afghan army. And in this case, now women are being recruited to be trained as the first ever women's police force. And that's phenomenal, but it's a huge cultural shift, and the women will need a lot of support.
But something our soldiers are doing is
Exactly.
training the Afghan army, as you know, so
Yes.
that they can live independently and fight off the Taliban when the Canadian soldiers are gone,
Exactly. We
or
need
the
to,
American soldiers are gone.
Well, NATO will leave one day, and we need to make sure we have structures in place where people can protect themselves.
Well, it's an international effort, as you know, to do something decent in Afghanistan. Really.
Yes.
Moments for you that you returned to Canada, camera on board, moments you remembered that you can't shake, with a person, with a woman, with a soldier, with a wounded soldier.
Many, very, we need them. Please don't leave. You know, well, I'll get emotional.
Right. No, but did you get in? That's okay. That's good for television. You know that.
That's why I'm a camera person.
You're
We
a
hide
camera
behind
person.
the camera.
You're
It's
a
easier.
filmmaker. You're supposed to get them to cry.
Well, let's hope my job does that.
No, but a passionate filmmaker obviously has to see the story, get into the story, understand the story, and
Yes.
find the nuance that will make a difference, really.
Yes.
And you do all your own shooting.
I do. I can honestly say I'm very proud of this work. I feel that it's probably my best in 20 years. And I think a lot of it, as you say, it's, first of all, I was grateful to the Canadian Forces for trusting me with their story. They were completely transparent. Nobody can control what I do with the story when I come back. So I'm very grateful to them. And apart from that, the soldiers, I'm there to honor them. And I do support what they're doing.
And do you think we should stay? Do you
Yes.
politically weigh in?
Yes.
I know we're going to stay in some capacity, but we should stay as long as it takes.
Yes, and I think most people should understand it should be a 15-year investment at least. It takes a long time to rebuild a country. They're starting from zero. And in 5 years, they've come a long way, but we have a lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do. I mean, there are small things, vaccination programs, schools, not small things, but things that are starting to bubble, is my sense. From my friend Sally Armstrong and people like that, great journalists, and
Yes.
they've seen it happen many times, and it's very important to them that we complete. We've lost lives, and so we need to complete.
We do. And people like Sally Armstrong devoted so many years to educating us, and we need to continue that legacy. So I'd like to continue
Sure.
that legacy in a different
And
format.
Seema Samar, isn't it? Dr. Seema Samar?
Yes, amazing
Yes.
work, amazing work. There are so many heroes. There are so many heroes, and obviously we all share one passion, and that is to bring change. And as Canadians, we're very good at that. We are good at our legacy of care worldwide, and that's what we're known for.
And, you know, who's in favor of war? None of us.
Exactly.
If we could
but-
stop it all, it'd be a marvelous day.
And that will never happen. And things have the world has changed. I think the world has changed dramatically even in 10 years. And we have to be prepared, we have to be educated, and we have to defend ourselves. And in order to do that, we need the technology. And that's why even my going there, I had to ensure that I had body armor. How many journalists 10 years ago had to have body armor to do a story? I had a sponsor. I had Armor Works who were able to provide me with body armor. Otherwise, I couldn't afford it. I had Chinese veterans. I had the Chinese Military Museum supporting me. And I had EBCO, a manufacturing firm.
See, and you had a newfangled camera.
Yes.
You could actually carry.
Well,
How'd you protect it from
the new
all the
technology, actually, with the dust, I used a raincoat for the camera, I had to revamp it. This is all new technology, so even Sony wasn't sure what I should do, etc. So now actually I'm having custom body armor designed for my camera for my return trip. And I'm having new body armor designed. I guess you got to see a little bit. I'm having new armor designed so I can move more freely with my camera.
You know, one of the great poignant times from Outside the Wire was when you talked to a mother who had lost her son.
Carol.
And they said, you know, the captain said, I don't expect you to say it was worth it. But she said what helped her with it all was that she realized that people in the military are like brothers and sisters. And she knew that her son was never alone, even though he had left home and he was far away.
Exactly. And you have to respect where that came from. And I spoke to many of those parents who were there to honor their children as well as to learn about the mission. And it took a lot of courage. And that whole ceremony was so moving. And the Afghans were trying to support our fallen in their way. And it really was a coming together of everyone.
Very much so.
The parents were grateful for that.
And country of rich culture. Very rich culture.
And beautiful people people with a rich heritage. And they have wonderful music and culture, which hopefully I can bring some of that back next time.
I hope so. Outside the Wire, can we get it online? Where can we get this?
Yes, actually at this point, the Canadian version will be going out for sale in January. There will be an extended international version going to film festivals, and that releases in May, and I'm negotiating with the American rights for that.
Okay. Nice
Thank
to
you,
see
Patty.
you. Thank you. Alison MacLean, and coming up, she suggests you slide a kid's book under the tree and maybe one for the adults who still read kids' books too. Stay with us for literary ideas for toddlers and teens and a few tweens.